Hi there, we're Alex and Gretchen Comer of Spiral Journey Holistic Life Services. We're fortunate to live on beautiful land surrounded by nature and nature's gifts, and to have the freedom to live the way that aligns with our hearts and souls. It's autumn, and today we're going to talk about how to make black walnut dye with just two ingredients. You want to start by collecting 4 to 5 gallons of fallen black walnuts. And be sure to choose the ones with hulls that are turning black and still have pith around the nut. And you'll find these on the ground, not on the tree. Metal pots that can hold 3 to 5 gallons and that are designated just for dyeing. Approximately 5 gallons of spring water, and you'll want extra water for rinsing the items that you intend to dye. A wooden pounder or mallet to crush walnut hulls. A heavy-duty wooden stirring stick, which can also be a nice sturdy tree branch. A heavy-duty metal grill or grate that you can put directly on the fire. Fireproof oven mitts, and extra 5-gallon buckets for rinsing and holding rinsed items. A rigid grate or wire mesh, a screen, and window screening works well for this too. Or you can use a burlap sack to screen out the walnut debris. And you'll want something like old metal chairs or something else that can support the screens and still be high enough to be able to put the bucket underneath that you're catching all of the walnut dye in. And this is by no means the only way to screen out the debris, so if you have better items at home to screen with, go for it. And although the dye is not caustic, once you're handling items or the dye, and even the splash out, you'll want to have some vinyl gloves to protect your hands. You'll want to have some natural clothing or fabric that you want to dye, such as 100% cotton or wool or linen, etc. And you can also do untreated leather and suede, as well as yarn, as long as it's 100% natural. And it's helpful to have a pair of metal tongs for lifting out the dyed items from the hot dye bath once you get to that point. So now let's go ahead and drain off the cooled dye bath into the screen structure that we've put together. And this is something that's a lot easier when you're dealing with pans that hold anywhere from 3 to 5 gallons. If you have a second person that can help you, you really do find that having a second pair of hands to help with this part is just a lot quicker and more efficient. So we want to have something like the big stirring stick to kind of hold back some of that debris so it doesn't come rushing out all at once. Waterlogged walnuts are heavy, and when you have about 4 or 5 gallons of liquid and nut debris, it can be quite interesting to try to pour it slowly. And you want to do this so that it doesn't splash everywhere. And as you can see, we've got a piece of old corrugated cardboard to kind of protect our shins, and this is very helpful in this process. And I can see the screens are catching most of that debris, and it's larger than the bucket underneath, just so that we can catch all of that and we're not losing as much of it. Now, if you can fit 2 buckets underneath at the same time, or if you have a square, like big storage container, you might want to use something like that. It would catch more of that debris that's kind of scattering out. And you can't always control it, so the big stirring stick is really just a way to kind of have all of that stuff falling everywhere. And when we get to the end of it and we've dumped everything through the bucket and screen system, you're going to have some debris that's kind of the final debris here. And it's the stuff that, if you can, have a single piece of screening that you can squeeze out like we show you here. It really just helps to get all of the rest of that out. And then, of course, when you're done with the nuts and all of that debris, you can go ahead and just compost it or dump it in your woods if you live near a forest. Squirrels are still able to eat this, which is one of the reasons we love making walnut dye. It is quite a treat for them, and our squirrels, we dump it along the hedgerows and the bushes, and the squirrels go and find them and they eat them all winter long. If you're not going to dye right away, you want to go ahead and make sure that you're storing your dye in a bucket with a lid to keep it free of debris from falling into it, as well as insects. Otherwise, we'll move on to talking about how to begin to dye your items. So when you're ready to dye, you want to go ahead and pour the dye bath back into your big metal pot and stick it back over the fire. Now this is going to want to watch it carefully, because what you're looking for is really a nice low simmering boil. You don't want it at a roiling boil, because it has a tendency to break down the natural fibers of the fabric and clothing items that you're using. And you especially want to be careful if you're using leather. You don't want to boil leather unless you're looking for that really rigid sole of a shoe kind of thickness of leather. This is what Romans used to do as a regular practice in order to make the soles of their sandals, as they would boil their leather. So you want to just keep it in there for about an hour. Now, when it comes to other fibers like cotton, linen, and wool, you can leave it in there for much, much longer, especially if you're going to take it off the fire after about an hour, hour and a half, which is what I would advise to do. You don't have to pull out your dye items at that time. You can simply leave them in there, put the lid on your pan, and let it continue to steep in that dye bath overnight as it slowly cools. This is ultimately going to give you a richer and darker walnut color to the items that you're dyeing. So when you feel like your items have achieved that desired dark shade of dye, you want to go ahead and rinse them to get all of the debris and grit from the walnut dye bath off of them. And you want to do this in lukewarm water. Now this is just to initially get all of the debris off of it. So once you get the debris off of it, stop washing it. You'll want to immediately air dry it. This should be indoors where it's out of direct sunlight, because walnut dye at this stage is very light sensitive. So you want to go ahead and let it completely dry, and then when it sits dry, you want to go ahead and use a mild detergent in your washing machine, or you can hand wash at this point. And this is to continue to get the rest of the dye out of the material. And then you want to heat dry it. And again, keep it out of direct sunlight, so go ahead and wash these items by themselves or together with just those items. You don't want to put your other laundry in with these items. And then dry it in your clothes dryer so that you can help set the dye into the fabric. Okay, well, you've completed the dyeing process if you've gotten this far in the video. In order to maintain the dye, you want to make sure that you're not washing these items as frequently as you would wash your normal clothing. But we do have t-shirts that we dyed over 20 years ago, and since we make a new dye bath every fall, we can always just throw them in the dye bath again and re-dye them. Many of these items can be continually re-dyed so that you can maintain that beautiful shade of walnut dye for years to come. And if you have any questions about your dye making process, feel free to reach out to us at the website or use the contact form. And we love it when people share their dye making successes, so feel free to share any videos or photos that you may have of your dyed items. Happy dyeing!